Welcome, unfortunate souls of the internet, and fortunate souls. I guess I don't know how you're feeling today. To Man Buns and Jesus, episode 25 of season 2. We're so happy to be here. I might be happier to be here than Ben is, but he can. What are we talking about today, Ben?
Uh, so it is uh the arbitrarily chosen Pastor Appreciation Month once again. And yesterday after Bible study I was gifted actually was it before or after? Might have been before Bible study. I was gifted like a gallon of soup, a pan of cornbread, and a loaf of zucchini bread. Um so I to my congregation, um I do appreciate being appreciated with food. Um, Especially when it's as good as those have been. Um, but yeah, um, as pastors, we appreciate a lot of things. Some of them have to do with our ministry.
That's what I
Uh,
appreciate about you, Ben.
some of them, like Josh's taste in alcohol, are not at all associated with the ministry. Uh,
This isn't alcohol if you're watching the video, and I just like, this is water, I swear.
um, but what we do genuinely appreciate is when people hear the things that we are trying to teach them about God and discipleship and being a Christian and um, any other number of things, and people hearing that and actually responding the way that we'd hope, um, or people doing things without us having to teach them first. And so today we thought it would be kind of fun to say, like, uh, as pastors, here's what we appreciate about you uh, in this month where a number of you have expressed your appreciation of us. My dog is amped up and thinks it's playtime, so this might be a little interesting today. But Josh, you want to go first?
Sure. I just when I think of when I think of people I appreciate in the church and what they do that is worth appreciation. um, I mean, obviously, there's stuff like the leaders in the church. I'm appreciative of what you do. All of the volunteer leaders in the church. If you're listening to this, if you're a volunteer leader in your church, like that service particularly is appreciated. But when I think of just like people doing their thing and I look at them and I say, I am so thankful that they are members of this congregation. Um,
Can I expand this to we appreciate when there are volunteers that do things so that we don't have to worry about them?
yeah, yes, very much yes.
Like it's a small thing, but we have the old school hymn boards on the side of the sanctuary. And one of my elders every Saturday, he'll come in, put the hymn numbers up. I've never had to ask him. I've never had to uh like remind him. He does it. Um this past week he was out of town and so no one did it. And it was weird. Um I didn't expect to show up and see the boards blank, but they were, and it caught me off guard. But it's those little things that we take for granted sometimes, but we definitely appreciate the small things that people do that we then don't have to worry about.
Right. But all of it, so I was building to like there's one family that I inescapable like if I think what does a member that I really appreciate look like? And I'm not gonna name them because I haven't talked to them about name dropping them or whatever. And but there's a single family in the church that I'm like, they're it. Right? I see them and it makes my day better. It makes me think something is being accomplished here. and they don't do anything groundbreaking. They're there on Sunday morning. Pretty much every Sunday. And like, I can't overstate how much that alone, like if if you think church is important enough that you're there almost every Sunday, that means a lot, right?
Mm.
Because that's of our week. Sunday morning is kind of the thing where we theoretically see everybody, right? Not everybody does a Bible study. Not everybody does these different little things throughout the week, but everybody at some point goes to worship. And seeing everybody there, seeing everybody making that a priority in their life, that's the thing that I profoundly appreciate. But so they show up to worship, they want to serve, but they don't have an agenda with their service. They genuinely just say, like, what do we need done? Like, what do we need help with? I'll help. I'll step in. I'll do that. They have their kids step in and do that. It's an expectation they have for their kids, that their kids are going to be there, that their kids are going to help and serve alongside them. So it's seeing that I'm very appreciative of. And then the other thing this family does, two other things that I'm just like, this is great. They genuinely like seek to grow in their faith. And because like I don't see how you do your personal devotions. If you're like a member of my congregation, I don't have a magic pastor sense that tingles and I'm like, oh, they're doing their devotions right now. Like that's not, nope, that'd be creepy and weird. But how I know is they come up to me, or their kids come up to me and they say, hey, I came across this.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk about it? Like, can you explain it a little bit? Like, how do we deal with it? Whatever. Or when they come to me and they say, I was talking to a friend about this issue. Do you have anything that I can bring to them? And like seeing that they're actually looking for places for their faith to impact their daily life, like I could not ask for more. I suppose I could, but I don't feel any need to. And then they're inviting people. Like this family, and this is going to kind of out them for who they are, but this family, we in the past 2 months, we've had consistently like 12 guests there, all invited by this one family, and some of them are becoming members like that. And then finally they like to hang out, right? They invite Chris and I to stuff, and I appreciate that, but I guess that's more of a personal thing. So it's really show up to church, be engaged with your faith, and be serious about how you're witnessing to other people. Like that's what it takes for me. Like I see this family that does all that, and I think I am thankful for them. I'm incredibly appreciative of them.
Yeah, I can echo so many of those sentiments, and like we have a couple of families with young kids that I'm just thrilled every time I see them show up. Because I remember how much of a pain in the butt my brothers and I were to get out of bed on a Sunday morning, and I'm sure your parents have probably some similar stories about trying to get you all to church on a Sunday morning. Your dad worked for a church.
Yes, he did.
Not that makes it that much different, but like it was still a pain for your family, I'm sure.
Probably. And I remember very distinctly in the van. It was back when we lived in Florida, so I was in like probably 3rd grade or something. I had snuck into the van and I had worn flip-flops to church, and we didn't wear flip-flops. And I remember like that was not a pleasant conversation when my mom opened the side door of the van and I was sitting there with my flip-flops. So yeah, it was no picnic, but they got us there. They got us there every morning. I actually, I remember, this is nuts. I remember very distinctly we were always late to church. My dad wasn't a pastor, he was a DCE, so like it's not like he was involved with the service a lot of times. Um, but we were frequently late. Not really late. We were like 10 minutes late. But we were
My family was
consistently
lucky. My family was lucky to get there by the children's message.
5 to 10 minutes late until I remember one New Year's mom says, our New Year's resolution as a family is we are not going to be late to church anymore. And she kept it. I don't know how. I don't know how she made that happen. Probably just sheer willpower, but
Hmm.
one of the
God
only
bless
New
your
Year's
mom.
resolutions that has ever been made and kept was by my mother because we made it to church on time.
Good for her. Yeah, but I mean, circling back, there are families that I love to see every week because I know like that it can be a pain for them to get there, but they still come because it's important. I get messages and stuff of questions about people's personal time and devotion, um, and that kind of thing excites me because it tells me that they're doing the legwork to better themselves as a Christian and as a disciple, um, outside of our time in worship. Um, in Bible study yesterday, I had a woman, and you know who you are if you're listening to this, but the biggest smile crossed her face when she realized that she had something written down from a previous week in Bible study. Uh, and like she got so excited that she could answer my question quickly because she had the answer in front of her. She was paying attention. um, and like when you take those things seriously, we appreciate that about you.
Yeah, we do. And if you get that quote, we appreciate that about you. Yeah, just another example of that. A couple weeks ago, uh, in a sermon, I referenced how much time I have logged on the video game Destiny, and it is over 47 days of game time. Right, it's a lot of game time.
Yikes.
And I got a text later that afternoon from one of my members saying, don't feel too bad, Pastor. It was like 32 hours logged on Animal Crossing, or 32 days logged on Animal Crossing. And then his wife, who it was a group text, his wife was like, yeah, I have like 30 hours logged on, or 30 days logged on Animal Crossing. Um, just so you don't feel so bad. And also, we were listening to your sermon. So, it sounds silly, but it really, sometimes you stand up there and you're like, am I just filling time? Like, is anybody actually hearing and taking this to heart? So those messages of like, yes, I heard you, and
Hmm.
especially if you send a message of like something you are changing something because of something that we said, like that's enough. That keeps me going for at least a week.
Yeah.
Like if I preach a sermon about uh, now, I'm going to use this example because it's still with me, and I preached this sermon 4 years ago. So it was I remember it. The power went out in the building. Uh, my in-laws were there, it was a stewardship sermon. So my in-laws showed up for the stewardship sermon where the power went out. Um, but I remember very distinctly several people came up the next week and they said they had changed their giving. They had increased their regular giving because of the sermon. Like, and 4 years later, that's still sticking with me. It's not hard to make your pastor happy. Listen to the 12-minute sermon and apply as appropriate.
Yeah. Yeah. I have a handful of those too where people come to me and there's genuine recognition of you know, what the Word of God is trying to tell us about something, or even a recognition of how something that they knew applies in a place that they didn't. Um, I have memories of Bible studies that stick out, especially where we got into the weeds of something, controversial or divisive, and uh, people would come up to me afterward, and um, when I saw the recognition that, oh yeah, when it says that we shouldn't, you know, I'm this is a fake example, but based on a real one. When it says that we shouldn't murder, uh, and Jesus then applies that to, evil thoughts about our neighbor, uh, that means we can't vilify, you know, X group that we don't like. Um,
Yeah, I
like
hate
here,
those X's.
yeah, really. Like, but when we
How
hear
dare
those
you
kind
have 4 points in a letter? Get over yourself.
but when we hear those words of recognition, it like it is truly, truly appreciated.
Like, those of you listening out there, you got to realize that validates everything we do.
Hmm.
Because that is the goal, right? The goal is to bring you the gospel and to bring you closer to God's will for your life.
Hmm.
So if you tell us that we have actually brought you closer to where God, in like a concrete way, not in a, oh, pastor, good sermon way,
Hmm.
in a real way, we have impacted your life and drawn you closer to where God wants you to be,
Hmm.
you are validating our entire career, right? Like that's what we do this for. So
I remember, I think it's in Matthew's gospel. Um, my home pastor did a sermon on um, how Matthew incorporated patterns into the genealogy of Jesus to spell out David's name. Um, it's kind of cool, but it points to his being a fulfillment of the kingly line of David. Um, and for some reason, that illustration stuck with me for years, and I brought it up like 2 years into seminary. I was like, yeah, I don't know, like when you preach this, but this is something that stuck with me for all those years as like this is truly God fulfilling his promises. Um, and my pastor just looked at me and went, there's no way I remember that sermon. And then gave me this dumbfounded look, and I was like, it stuck with me. And
well, I did.
yeah, exactly. It stuck with me. I remembered that sermon and I appreciated it. And like I don't know if he got anything more than a big smile out of it, but like looking back, I wish that other things that I had stick with me, I would have pointed to more, you know? My parents every Sunday on our drive home from church would ask us, what's one thing that you are taking away from the sermon this week? Which, by the way, if you want to like elementary way to start engaging with your family on the Word of God, that is a great place to start. Um, but I wish that I would have taken those and then gone back to my pastor with them more often. Um, because I know that like me now hearing similar things, I would have appreciated I would have appreciated hearing something like that. So I think he probably would have as well.
Yeah. Well, and on our sample size of 2 pastors, I can confirm I profoundly appreciate that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
Um, Now that isn't to say I don't appreciate the almost obligatory good sermon, pastor, on your way out, but like that's the deep that's like if someone says how are you doing and you said good and you like it's
Mhm.
are you are you really doing good or did you just say that? Um so the unless you have more I those are like the churchy things that like again they validate our entire our career, like our calling, right? I've
Yeah.
taken two vows in this world. One is to my wife, and the other is to be a pastor. So, like, you can't really validate the one. That's up to me and Chris. But the other one, validate that I made a right decision, I guess. That I'm doing something about this right.
Yeah. I
Moving
got
away from the churchy stuff, though.
no, yeah. Um, Fun things that people do when they appreciate us. I got a
Well,
gag gift. Hang
well, go
on. I got a
ahead.
gag gift from my ladies, the church ladies. That was it was good. It was like a survival kit. So there was like a lifesaver for when I feel like I'm drowning, a marble for when I've lost too many of my own, uh, a an
Bruh, they needed to
eraser
get
for
you a
all
whole jar of marbles.
probably an eraser for when I make mistakes, a band-aid for uh, when do damage to myself, essentially, and like
You would never.
a bunch of other things in there too. I can't remember off the top of my head, but um, I got a good laugh out of it, and it brightened up my day, and I appreciated that. Um, I've had a couple of funny biblical comics sent my way from past or from
Keep
parishioners.
rolling. Hold on.
Okay. Um, when I finished my vicarage year, uh, I got a. There were a group of guys that I golfed with pretty regularly, and one of them would change his putter frequently in order to uh, get better, and I would mock him for it. And so he took a bunch of old putters and turned them into a trophy and said, uh, "This is for being the best vicar at golfing because you're the only one. So this isn't really that big of an award." And they spelled my name wrong in some horrific way because it's long in German. And yeah, it was great.
For those of you who are not watching the video, I received this for Pastor Appreciation Month on Vicarage. It says YOLO, LOL, JK, BRB, Jesus, which stands for You Only Live Once, Laugh Out Loud, Just Kidding, Be Right Back, Jesus. Don't get me crap like this, because I don't use it. Um, Speaking of gag gifts, like that's a great gag gift, but I don't know. I'm not wearing that shirt. You kidding
He's
me?
got the one. He doesn't need another one.
It's just um but if we're talking like in simple ways, how are you gonna make me happy? Food's an easy one. Like it's I mean I struggle with it because I am trying to be healthy and whatnot. So if everybody brings me freaking brownies, that's you're creating temptation for me. Um,
Dangerous.
but like, and I think I told my elders this. If they ever notice that I'm really struggling and have a hard time, I cannot express to you how joyful I would be if one night someone were to ring my doorbell and it's the Domino's delivery person because someone ordered me pizza and just sent it to my house. That would I can't express to you how joyful that would make me. Um, I'm an easily pleased person, right? Um, the stuff like this is always like one of the members of the congregation made this for me, and that was cool. And Like we appreciate gifts. Gifts are nice. Cash is nice. I
I'm terrible at getting gifts, just as a warning to anyone in
oh
my
yeah,
congregation.
I'm you're net you need to if you're gonna give me a gift, first of all, I probably won't open it in front of you unless you make me. But I do not react very much. Like it's not that I'm not excited about the gift. I just am not a very like I'm not a very strongly reactive person. So if you're expecting me to just gush and be super excited and over the top about it, don't make me open the gift in front of you because that's not the reaction you're probably going to get. Um, so yeah, I wanted to talk about one. I mean, I know we kind of strayed into a little bit of silliness, I guess, but something else I really appreciate, and it's not a churchy thing, but it's like a personal thing. Um, when people talk to me like a person, right?
Mm,
Pastors are people. And that
hmm
means a lot of things, right? That means we're broken, that means we screw up, but that also means like there is more to me than the hour I interact with you on Sunday.
hmm
So talk to me like a person, which means two things. First, talk to me about your stuff.
hmm
Like I want to hear about your non-church life. I want to hear about how mad you were at the most recent Kings game. I want to hear about what you're doing next weekend. I want to hear about that stuff. Like we're friends or something, right? But then talk to me about my stuff, right? If all you know personally about me is what I have shared as examples in sermons, right? There's like talk occasionally you ask me how the weight room is going. I would love to talk about the weight room for a few minutes with someone on a Sunday morning. Or ask me how my destiny addiction is doing. So like just talk to me like I'm a person. It goes a really long way. And another thing, I have one member who's really good about this. Watch out for my well-being because and this isn't across the board, but it is pretty typical of pastors. We tend to suck at watching
hmm
out for ourselves,
mm
like mentally, emotionally, physically. Um, like I have one guy who at least once a month checks in and sees how many hours I'm working. Not in a are you working enough
mm
hours, in a you need to work less kind of thing. And he checks in at least once a month. A lot of times he'll check in a couple times a month to make sure I'm not working myself to death. Checking in, stuff like that, and um, which it's got to be a certain kind of relationship, right? Because if you ask me how my mental health is doing and we're not close, you're like, if it's doing bad, I'm not going to tell you that. So you develop the
hmm
relationship first, and then you can ask me how I'm doing, and I'll give you an honest answer, regardless of whether it's positive or negative. So I
hmm
appreciate the people at Edgewater who look out for me because I admittedly sometimes don't do it well enough on my own.
hmm I think one thing that I also appreciate is um, when people realize that you are also not their previous pastor. Um, that's maybe not as much of an issue for you, because your context is a little different. But I'm stepping into a church where they've had a fascinating series of relationships with previous pastors, and so there's a lot to compare me to. Um, and I thoroughly appreciate my members that don't fall into that temptation. Um, that realize that I mean, apart from the fact that I'm a uh, large, young, very hairy pastor, which is fairly different from their uh, previous pastors, but like I appreciate when people recognize that I'm like I can't minister to people the same way that their previous pastors did, because my strengths may not be their strengths. My strengths might, or their strengths might be some of my weaknesses. Um, but I'm going to lean into the things that I'm good at to make sure that I'm caring for people. And when people recognize that is how I'm attempting to do my ministry, boy, do I appreciate that. And it definitely helps me feel like they want me as their pastor, not just they want a cookie cutter, like run of the mill,
They don't
very
want the
thing
old
like that.
guy, just
Well,
less
yeah,
retired.
yes, exactly. Yeah. Um, there was a church in my circuit that went vacant last fall, and um, I've been doing a lot of praying for them because my circuit visitor kept noting that um, what they wanted was another version of the guy that they just had retire. And I like, I pray I never have to step into one of those kinds of situations.
They'll take one look at you and be like, that won't work.
It's probably true. But I mean,
I
at the
bet
same
your
time, like,
set is full of yellow flags for congregations like that.
that's possible.
That's something for anyone who doesn't know, a set. I don't know what the acronym stands for. Self
Self-evaluation
evaluation
tool.
tool. Actually, I
Yeah,
did know that. Um,
yeah.
it's basically it's like a 50 question thing of what is your practice as a pastor? How
Hmm.
do you handle baptisms and marriages and confirmations? Like, what's your preference with worship? What's your, like, your preferences and your practices on a whole bunch of stuff? So that's what
Hmm.
the set is. And every pastor in the LCMS is supposed to have a regularly updated set. You're supposed to go back every few months and make sure everything's still current, add any continuing education that you've done, that kind of stuff. And when we were getting interviewed for first calls at the seminary, a lot of people would joke that I was going to end up at like some super high church Midwestern place, which is not where I really wanted to go. And my response was always, one look at my set and they will never even consider extending a call my way.
Hmm.
So Ben, I think you're safe because I suspect your set looks similar to mine, at least at least in several ways.
Probably, probably. But still, like, just being allowed to be Pastor Ben and not, fill in the blank pastor from the past. I very much appreciate that.
You mean Pastor Olschlager?
No, I'm Pastor Ben. Nobody wants to have to
Sorry,
spell.
Reverend Olschlager.
I actually go by the term or by the honorific father. That
Not the
is
esteemed
allowed.
Reverend
That is
Benjamin
allowed in the
Olschlager.
LCMS. Nobody uses it. Um. Anyway,
Honorific father. That sounds that I don't like that. I don't like that one. We can leave that one. We can leave that one on the shelf. Uh so before we get to takeaways, what is the best gift you've ever received?
ooh. The best gift I've ever received as a pastor, or is just in general?
You can go ahead and say both. Go for it.
I'm actually gonna grab it. I'll be right back.
Oh, well, while he's doing that, I'm going to share mine and then not tell him. So I'm going to entertain me and maybe you, but not him. Um, I think the best gift. Oh, dang it, he's back. Never mind. Abort mission.
I don't know what you've been saying about me while I've been gone, but
It's fine. You can roll. You can listen to it and find out.
so my brother was my best man for my wedding, and my dog thinks that is playtime because this thing kind of looks like one of her toys. Um, but I'm an avid disc golfer.
My
Leave it.
dog's laying calmly in the hallway.
My dog is amped. Um, but my brother got me this custom dyed disc golf disc with a uh, Minnesota Twins logo, my and my wife's name on it, and the date of our wedding. And I know that he had to do a little bit of legwork to get it done, but like I didn't know it was coming, and it's something that like I genuinely loved right off the bat. Um, and I think that makes it the best gift I've ever received. How about you?
Um, I think the best gift I've ever received was actually last Christmas. My wife, Chris, got me a scroll saw. And boy, howdy, let me tell you what, that is a fun tool to play with.
Nice.
Um, but I think, I mean, and I don't have a ton of experience on this, but the best church gift I've ever received, at least for now, it is this bottle that has the church branding on it and my name and title, I guess. But I use this all the time. It is pretty literal, like almost 24/7. This is within 5 feet of my person. I am hydrated because I have this. So, and as we mentioned earlier, it is filled with water, not liquor.
If I limit it to church gifts, I think mine has to be there's a banner hanging in my office at church that was made for my installation at Good Shepherd. Um, and it's awesome. Um, I read it as the congregation's prayer for me. Um, that they want me there to prepare them, to help them to bear fruit. Um, and you may have seen it in some of our past podcast episodes in the background, but um, yeah, I thoroughly appreciate that. Josh, would you do takeaways?
Let's do takeaways. Mine is simply this: if you want to appreciate your pastor, show up and really be there.
Mm-hmm.
Don't just be a warm body. Listen, apply, engage,
Mm-hmm.
because that's probably the most meaningful thing you can do for
Mm-hmm.
your pastor. What
Yeah.
about you, Ben? Takeaway.
I will echo that and add to that. Get involved with whatever the ministries, the work of your church is. Get involved.
Yeah. Um, so some prayer thoughts for you going forward. Pray for pastors who have to grin and smile as they receive weird gifts this month. Hopefully, neither of us has to do that, but I guess there's a potential. But a lot of pastors this month are going to just get some weird gifts that they have to pretend they're excited about. So
Mhm,
pray for them and their acting skills.
mhm.
Uh, give thanks for your pastor, if he's doing his job, I guess. I hope everyone's pastor who listens to this is doing their job, considering most of them probably go to our churches. Um, and yeah, and praise God for working through scrubs like us. Shameless plug time. um, we are on all the major podcasting platforms. Follow, subscribe, whatever the branding on that particular podcast is. It's nice for us to. It's another thing we can appreciate. We look at the number and we say, okay, people actually are listening to this. It's actually worth the time we're putting into it. And obviously the benefit for you, you get notified that new episodes are out or whatever. I get notified twice because I have the Podbean app because that's like initially how it gets posted, and I have Spotify because that's what I use for everything. So every Tuesday morning, I get two notifications that we have a new episode out, and I'm sitting there thinking, I knew that. Didn't have to tell me once. Much anyway. So subscribe, follow, whatever it takes. Um, and also, we do have a Facebook page. You can like it if you want. Really, the only thing that gets posted on there is every week when the new episode comes out, a post goes out on Facebook saying, "Hey, we have a new episode out," which is a moot point if you're subscribed to the podcast. But the Facebook page is good for reaching out to us with topic suggestions or guest requests if you want to be on the show or you want us to try and get someone on the show. Um, Especially, it's helpful if you are not personally connected to one of the two of us. So. Um, there's all that. I feel like I had another shameless plug, but I don't think I have another shameless plug. Oh yeah, go to church. Go to church. See you in church on Sunday.
We appreciate that.
Get you some Jesus. Go in peace. Serve the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
Why
No,
was there
that
so much hesitation in that?
I was still confused and concerned about the previous stuff. We're good.
Just don't worry about it.